Bob scrolls through his phone. Get rich with real estate. Next video. Crypto will make you a millionaire. Next one. You'd already be rich if you stopped buying coffee. According to the internet, everyone knows the secret to getting rich. The weird part? Most millionaires got there in completely different ways. So today, we're going to break down the main ways people get rich using real numbers, real trade-offs, and one very ordinary guy named Bob. By the end of this video, you'll know the 6 biggest ways people build wealth, how much time each one usually takes, how much risk comes with it, and why almost nobody becomes wealthy using only one of them. Let's go. Path Year 1. A high salary. Bob thinks getting rich starts with earning more money. Seems obvious, except Bob knows a doctor making $300,000 a year who has almost nothing saved. Every raise turned into a bigger house, a newer SUV, more expensive vacations. His income kept climbing. His net worth barely moved. This is the trap of the high earner. We call it lifestyle creep, but it often feels like standard maintenance. You buy the premium lifestyle, and suddenly, that high salary becomes a golden cage. A high salary doesn't make you rich. It only gives you more money to either invest or spend. If that same doctor invested just 20% of his income every year and earned an average annual return of 8%, after 20 years, he'd likely have well over $1 million. Instead, his lifestyle became expensive. His balance sheet didn't. This is probably the least exciting path on today's list. It's also one of the most reliable. Bob checks his investment account. Nothing exciting happened this month. That's exactly the point. Bob invests $1,000 every month into a diversified stock index fund, earning an average annual return of 8%. After 30 years, he ends up with roughly $1.5 million, no viral startup, no secret strategy, just consistency. Then, almost without noticing, Bob stops being the main source of his wealth. His investments take over. Out of that $1.5 million, Bob only contributed $360,000 of his own money. The remaining $1.1 million came from compound growth, and more than half of that growth happened near the end. Time matters more than brilliance. If Bob waits just 10 years before starting, those same monthly investments grow to only about $680,000. Waiting 10 years costs him almost $1 million. Not because he invested badly, because he started late. Compound growth rewards patience much more than intelligence. Path number 3, home ownership. Bob buys a $300,000 home with a mortgage. Every monthly payment does 2 things. Part covers interest, part increases the amount of the house he actually owns. Unlike rent, some of that payment slowly becomes equity. It acts like a forced savings account. Every payment shifts a little more ownership from the bank to Bob. 30 years later, the mortgage is gone. If the home's value roughly doubles over those decades, which has happened in many long-term housing markets, Bob owns an asset worth around $600,000 outright. Maintenance, taxes, insurance, and local housing prices all matter. One broken roof or a cracked foundation can wipe out a year of progress. For millions of families, the house they simply lived in for 30 years became the biggest asset they ever owned. Not because it made them rich overnight, because they kept showing up every month. Everything we've talked about so far required Bob to trade either time or money. The next 2 paths are different. They let Bob own things that keep working long after he stops. Path number 4, building a business. Bob opens a small lawnmower repair shop. The first 2 years are rough. He works longer hours than ever before. He earns less than he did at his regular job. This is the valley of death for most business owners. You aren't really an entrepreneur yet. You just own a stressful job where you're both the boss and the only employee. Most businesses never make it past this stage. Bob does. Customers return. Employees handle more of the work. Revenue grows. 5 years later, the business generates about $100,000 a year in profit after paying everyone, including Bob. If similar businesses sell for roughly 4 times annual profit, Bob now owns an asset worth around $400,000. That value didn't come from saving money out of a paycheck. It came from owning something that generates income independently. This is also the riskiest path in today's video. Many small businesses fail, but unlike a salary, there's no built-in ceiling. When the business grows, so can its value. Path 5 Eve. Owning part of the company. You work for Bob gets two job offers. One pays a slightly higher salary, the other includes company stock. If that company succeeds, those shares can become worth far more than the difference in salary. That's how many early employees at successful technology companies built serious wealth without ever launching a startup. They didn't own the whole company, they owned enough of it for success to change their lives. Their salary paid the bills, their ownership built the wealth. But this path comes with concentration risk. If both your paycheck and your investments depend on the same company, one bad year can hurt both at once. For every employee whose shares became worth millions, many others watched their stock options become completely worthless. Company stock can create life-changing wealth. It should rarely become your entire investment portfolio. Path 6. Luck and inheritance. Sometimes people really do become wealthy because they inherited money. Sometimes they bought Bitcoin years before almost anyone had heard of it. Sometimes they happened to join exactly the right startup at exactly the right time. Luck exists. Inheritances exist. Neither is something you can build a plan around. You can't schedule good luck, and you can't build your future assuming someone else will eventually fund it. Relying on luck is just waiting for a rescue that usually isn't coming. 6 paths. 5 you can actually influence, 1 you can't. Notice what the first 5 all have in common. In every case, Bob ends up owning something: investments, home equity, a business, company shares. Even a high salary only matters if it eventually buys ownership somewhere else. That's the pattern behind most real wealth. People don't become rich because money passes through their hands. They become rich because some of that money stays behind and keeps working. And almost nobody relies on only one path. A steady career funds investments. A home slowly builds equity. A business creates additional income. Each one makes the others stronger. The internet keeps asking, what's the fastest way to get rich? Bob finally realized the better question was, what can I own today that will still be working for me 10 years from now? That's where most wealth quietly begins.